that is the importance of doing some sort of journeyman path with any form of creative work you do. Because I think sometimes the art is not even in what you create, but it's who you become to create that. What's up, y'all? This video is about how I wrote one story over 1,000 hours, and here's how it changed me. The reason why I wrote this story was because when I was a child, I always loved to read. Reading books was a form of escapism for me. It was a form of adventure. And in the way that people believed and loved in Santa, as I did as well, magic and being a detective or being a spy, all these matters of imagination really moved me and enlivened my spirit as a kid. I really do give a lot of gratitude to reading for how much it has carved me into the person I am. I think every book is a pocket of knowledge. And so as I got older, I started to get into a thing called fan fiction, which is basically making stories based off of already written media forms, whether it be a TV show, a book, whatnot, and you basically do your own twist of it. And so, you know, when you're a young preteen in the era of Twilight and all of these things, right, all these romance novels like The Notebook and all that, you start to really explore the world of relationships and building things through these stories as well. I had read like a lot of fan fiction alongside books growing up, and they also added to my repertoire of imagination. And it was always a thing that I'd wanted to do of writing a story. So I tried a couple times, and I'd actually gotten pretty decently through some, but whether it be through perfectionism or procrastination, or I hadn't done things like plotting out the whole story so I didn't know where to go, I never really finished a story. And so around the time of COVID, where I think everyone kind of sat down and thought about themselves, their lives, their dreams, their goals, I really took the time to think to myself to be like, if I want to be a creative, if I want to be someone who expresses themselves externally, because I feel like you can be an artist, even if you never share your works. But for me, an important aspect was being a performer. I did want to express, I did want to share, I did want other people to experience what the world's in my head. It was important for me to really be about what I'm saying and really prove to myself that I can do it. So I took the time to plot it and write it out. And from chapter 1, it was work. It was a lot of work. It was a labor of love is what I call that story. But I give so much gratitude to the process of it, because it wasn't a very disciplined effort that I finished it all within 1 year. It actually took me 4 years to this day to write. I finished it like 3-4 months ago. It really required me to become a different person. You know, it wasn't so much of a discipline like every single day I'm writing 500 words. I tried to, but you know, I think I ended up making a better promise to myself was no matter how long it took, no matter what I had to do, I was gonna get this done, especially before I moved on to anything else. I didn't allow myself to focus on any other art forms. I wasn't making YouTube videos. I wasn't trying to make music. I just said I need to do this, because if I start to focus on other things, I'll get distracted and I will lessen the weight that this story's importance has to me if I don't prioritize it. There was a lot of ups and downs in terms of like, could I get it done? There'd be months often between chapters, but what really was a blessing was the community that came from the story as well. You know, there was a lot of people who, you know, were reading the fan fiction that I was writing, and when they came on and left comments or kudos or just their theories and ideas for the work, it really motivated me in the process to just keep going, you know. And I try not to have any expectations. I didn't want to put it on myself being like, oh, people have to read it and they have to see it for it to have value. But I can't lie and not say that having other people enjoy the story really added a new life to it that wasn't reliant on me alone. Something about story writing is such also an exploration of you and your minds and the values and principles that are important to you, that by really taking the time, because my story I think was about 200,000 words, it was a big mama, and with the multiple different characters in it, the main character growing through the progression, because it was a fantasy novel, it really taught me how to express a journey. How do I authentically show character growth throughout these stories while also having a lot of these plot type elements of big villains and a lot of worldly consequences and magic, while also making it a very grounded and intimate story. It challenged me at both ends. You know, I could have done a way easier story. I did not have to do what I did. 30 chapters, 200,000 words, it was a lot. Almost too much, I would say. But the too much really allowed me to grow creatively, and it was the world in my head. I think I have a tendency to always want to do the big thing, especially when I was younger. Didn't really see the worth in doing the small things to build the skills. Now, thank God I'm in that era where, and I think it makes you more flexible to then do those big things, but it requires patience. But I think now that I'm in that era of patience and being bored and learning how to be still and be zen, it really gives me sort of a backbone to then have the whole world at my fingertips in terms of creation, because I can do it small, and the small things always lead to the big things, so it's just a matter of time and practice. I think writing a story really, it's a different type of grind. I think it's almost like a long distance creative work. I think writing itself is probably the most cheapest yet long-lasting creative art you could probably do, because all you need is really a piece of paper and a pencil. But one thing I've seen with book writing is that it holds its weight for a while. A lot of the most memorable pieces of art that we consume, even in education and more modern forms, are books. You know, movies can slowly go out of style, video games go out of style, music can go out of style. But one thing about writing a book is that it has a weight to itself that lasts for centuries. We still read Shakespeare, we still read things like the Odyssey, and we still even read parables written on hieroglyphs because of how much the myths hold weight. And I think there's something about a timeless story, a timeless written story, that lasts longer than the lifespan. I think it's bigger than humanity itself. And that's not to necessarily equate my specific story with it, though I do believe it is a child of that. I think any story that really holds weight and taps into the core of what people are, taps into the core of the collective unconscious, meaning that the myths that are within us that make up the assets and facets of our mind are ever present for us to communicate with in our art. And so I think that even if it's a fan fiction about a young teenage girl, or it is Othello by Shakespeare, it has an aspect of God within it. God as in the quantum intelligence, not necessarily religious, but the quantum intelligence that binds us all together. So I don't know how I get super philosophical with it, but I think that is the importance of doing some sort of journeyman path with any form of creative work you do. Because I think sometimes the art is not even in what you create, but it's who you become to create that. And these little chisels of patience that you build, these little chisels of love that you build. And I think there's something very pure about doing a craft purely for the sake of the craft. The only thing that was my anchor in writing this was a promise, and what I realized was so many skills I was building, but really the skill of completion. It wasn't about money. You know, with fan fiction, you do not make money from it. It's always passion, legally and just emotionally, like it's for free. And so there was no incentive of, say, with a YouTube video we can get monetized, or an original book I could sell. With this one, it purely was about putting the time in and knowing I could trust myself to do it. And I think it was a key component in me building the trust within myself, that it's not just within a book, but within me as well. Like, I can look back and I know I have it in my Rolodex of my mind being like, I know I can, no matter what, can build something that takes 4 years and hundreds of thousands of words to create, because I just said I would do it for myself. And I think that sort of love that you pour, I don't think anyone else could have done it for me. The money would have cost to pay someone to write my story the way I wanted to would have been expensive as shit. And it still wouldn't have been exactly how I wanted it. And I don't think anybody else could have written the story. I don't think anyone had time or patience to write me a story for fun. It just allowed me to build and see the level of adoration and commitment and duty that I had to myself, to my younger self, to my current self, and to my older self, because of the skills I now carry. So I said this all to say, it really did change me. It really did allow me to have a new perspective on creativity as a form of work as well. And also I think it matured me as well. You know, it wasn't just, it's something I can really look and be concrete to say, hey, I built this. I wasn't playing games, though they're also important to be fun and to just do things casually and to drop things and pick things up as you go. I think that really is important for experimentation. But when it comes down to it, for my goals as an artist, to be able to look at myself and say, nah, I could write a whole book for myself, no matter how long it takes. And now it's gonna take even less time because I don't have to have these worries and fears of if I can do it. It's like, you've already done it, so let's get to it. If you are considering doing anything creative and you are pushed away because it might take time, or you're not sure it's gonna come out okay, or you know, you have all these different doubts and fears, but it still pulls you underneath all that to want to do it, I highly recommend it. I don't think it's always gonna be easy. I do think it's gonna require you to have the grit of a martial artist or someone in fitness, where it's like, it's not about if you're having fun all the time. Sometimes just getting it done is more important than how you feel. But I do think that creative works are fun or great in the sense that emotion is a core part of it anyways. So there's always going to be an opportunity to feel something about it, to feel emotionally moved by it. You know, I think mine was a unique case where I was building one thing over this time. But if you're making a bunch of songs or a bunch of videos or a bunch of chapters or vignettes, I think they're also very pliable. You know, whether it's time in the game or the project that you're building, how long it is, I think it's very, very important to yourself. Even if you're not an artist, I think doing a creative work for a period of time, it almost teaches you being maternal, being nurturing, you know, knowing how to grow things and letting things thrive and flourish under your care, including yourself, including your mind, including your creativity. So yeah, I wrote one story over 1,000 hours and it completely changed my life. And I highly recommend that you do something like it too, so it can change yours as well.